Hi. Whoa, that was weird. Hey guys, hi. They call me Pi, and today I'm showing you how I turn characters into pixel art. For this one, we're working in the style of the original Game Boy, so that means a 160 by 140 pixel resolution, and just 4 shades to work with. A lot of people have asked me how I do this, how I create these characters, so today I'm going to be walking you through the process. We'll be using Rosalina from Super Mario Galaxy as the example, and along the way I'll show you some tips, tricks, and techniques that help me bring characters like this to life on such limited hardware. I think by the end you'll pick up at least one new trick, so stay around and let's get started. So my starting point for most of these art pieces is usually reference. I like to pull a little bit of reference just to get an idea of the pose or the character costume. So that's where I first start. And from there, I'm thinking of line and silhouette. I want to make a really good silhouette. That's really important in art in general, but I think it's especially important with pixel art because so much of it's abstracted. So you're thinking of silhouette, but you're also thinking of proportions, and that's where line comes in. Using the lines to kind of identify how far apart some of the key landmarks are on the character. And you'll see what I do is I kind of push and pull different elements to make sure that one, the silhouette reads, that's primary, but two, inside of that silhouette, each item is the appropriate amount of distance away from each other. One thing you'll notice early on, it's easier to see kind of in these playbacks, is Rosalina's arm is just way out of proportion. I think if I took a step back and wasn't so deep in the mix, I might have realized that earlier. You'll see that I do try and jump in and make some pretty drastic changes, but because I wasn't very well planned, I don't think I address that as quickly as I normally would when I'm making these types of pieces. After line, I'm thinking of flat colors. So because we have such a limited color palette, or value palette, we can call it, I have to figure out how to assign different colors and still make sense. So this is another area where we're thinking of color as relative, or value as relative. I know I want the background to be black, so that's one of my tones gone. From there I have white, the light gray, and then the dark gray to work with. And in my mind, I think the brightest portion is the trim and maybe her crown. And then the skin and hair, they seem about the same tone in our reference. So I use that same gray color. That way the eyes can pop against it and some other things. And then the darkest value in Rosalina's reference is her dress. So I made that the darkest tone. And with the background, that'll kind of push those values a little bit higher in our mind. So usually after I do the flats, I'll go back through and try and adjust some of the lines to make them read a little bit more clearly. When you're doing pixel art, a lot of the time you're thinking about, I think the pixel artists call them jaggies. You want to make sure the lines look smooth, round where they're round and straight where they're straight. And having pixels kind of out of order will make the line unappealing. It'll make it not look like a line or not look like a curve, but look like a line with bumps, or curve with bumps. I guess that's pretty obvious. And this is a perfect place to go back and compare those different distances and line ratios and make sure everything makes sense for the viewer. After cleaning up a lot of the line work on a macro scale, what I tend to do is focus in on one part of the art at a time. So that may be just the hair, or that may be just the face, or maybe just a hand, arm. I'll start to work in sections and treat each part like a little puzzle I have to solve. That's why you'll see some parts just kind of stay in limbo for so long. And this is actually a part where I want to put a little bit of time into. Rosalina's earring. Because it's white, we're able to put a lot of detail into a smaller space by using so many different colors and values. We're also able to play with it and make it look curved by using lighter parts in some of the line work. You'll see I go back to it here, and because I darken the outer values, it forces me to make some of the line work darker so it reads easier and looks separate from the hair. Another thing I want to point out is artists like call these like doubles around Rosalina's neck, but those I feel are important in some areas to show a thicker line, like it's a darker value in that area, or it's overlapping with another part of the character. So that's a good way to show that. And here I'm investing some time into Rosalina's hand. I'm trying to make it look like she has individual fingers, and we accomplish that again through use of shading. Here we start to add some highlights and kind of preparing ourselves to separate Rosalina from that black background that we're eventually going to add. Here we're finally jumping through and making some changes to Rosalina's hand. I do remember struggling a lot to make this feel good. It felt a little awkward the way she was holding the wand, and this hand gesture feels a little bit better. So we're jumping in and adding some highlights and a little bit of detail in areas that are a little boring. There's not a lot going on, so we added clavicles there just so that space isn't completely blank. Here we're detailing the crown and adding some highlights and detail there, some detail to her wand, and we're checking how everything looks against that black background, making some tweaks here and there that you can probably barely tell are happening. And here we're adding that highlight. This will help Rosalina pop against the background. And we're going back in and adding a little bit of depth to the jewel on her chest. Here we're going back in and making her hair a little bit more on model. I do mess around with trying to dither a little bit here on the hair, but I think it just doesn't suit the character and what we've done with the rest of the piece super well, so I end up scrapping that idea. But from here we're about done. I think what you want to do is step back, review, give yourself a break, an hour break, a day break, step back, return to the piece, and make some changes. There's also a lot of value in finding people who can review the art for you too, and may have their own opinions on what could change. Yeah, this is about where we land. All right, guys, and with that, let's review the final piece. I hope you enjoyed seeing my process and picked up at least one new trick along the way. In fact, I'd love to hear what you learned in the comments below. If you like this video, subscribing really helps us reach that 450 subs goal for the month. And don't forget to check out the playlist or the recommended video for more pixel art adventures. God bless, be safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.